Certainly is hot out here. I know you guys think I died and dropped out of the world, but no, I think you guys think I just give up on YouTube altogether, but that's not the case. It was very difficult to pack up all that we had accumulated, me and my wife, before she passed. We were in that house for 22 years. It was amazing the stuff that we had stored, and most of it I don't need. A lot of it was her craft stuff, etc. And I've had yard sale after yard sale and had neighbors helping me gather that stuff up and donating it and putting it in the yard sale. Had one neighbor that actually helped with the yard sale. But I'm out of that house. That house actually sold early in July. We were busy showing the house the week of the 4th of July, and we closed on it on July the 17th. So I had between the week of the 4th of July and the end of July 17th to have it cleared out. Now, the contract said I could stay there until the 30th of July, but let's be honest, I was ready to move, so that's what we did. But I'm here, I'm back at the new house, and so hopefully you're going to start seeing a few more videos. And I will tell you that hopefully this coming week you'll see me setting up and getting my first little chicks. One of the things I wanted to do about moving out of a property that was in a homeowners association was to move somewhere where I could have some chickens. It's time for me to get started on that. So next week I'll be picking up my little chicks. I hope you guys will enjoy my video. You're going to see a tour of my garden. You're going to see that, and today in just a few minutes I've picked quite a bit of produce, and I didn't pick the yellow squash. I'll be back out to do that later this evening when it cools down a little bit. But let me show you what I did pick. All right, I got a few more cucumbers to add to this batch. Now I've got plenty of dill pickles that I canned last year. That'll be good throughout the winter until next season when cucumbers start coming in. I have a couple of zucchinis. The yellow tomatoes are the Dr. Wyche. The pink ones is the pink German tomato. And this box, which will be absolutely wonderful, that is my celebrities. And I didn't pick all of them, but I did pick most of them that had turned and were either ripe or almost ripe. So there'll be plenty of tomatoes to pick for the next, hopefully, month or two. Okay, as you can see, the new sidings on the house, the new sunroom, dining room combination is added to the house. That's my absolute favorite room in the house. I have actually taken a little time. I brought this, and what we have here is actually a pot full of thyme. This is its 3rd summer, and it is just wonderful. I love thyme, especially if I'm seasoning beef or beef roast. Now, inside the garden, yep, some of this stuff I brought from the other house. Some of it is brand new. This little sage here, it's a little red sage. It's actually a annual, it's not a perennial. The same thing here. Now this, I'm hoping, and that is marjoram. I'm hoping that marjoram will actually be a perennial. It should be. And I've got quite a bit of the, people call it tickweed, which I'm not sure why they do that, but those little flowers are just as dainty as they can be. This is a Mexican sage. It is definitely an annual. The deer came in and chewed the tops off of them. Actually, this is something my wife bought. It is a butterfly bush, but the blooms on it are yellow, and it attracts a lot of pollinators, and the butterflies have just loved it. The Japanese beetles found the calla lilies, and they kind of devoured the tops before I realized they were here. These, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I love onion chives. These were actually growing in the garden, so when I was coming over here, I just dug them up and stuck them in that pot. I've already pulled several volunteer tomato plants out of this and put them on the fence. I'll show you those in a little bit. I did buy some pink phlox. It's about gone now. It is a perennial. That is the short variety, and it had the most pleasant smell on it. I've got some herbs that I picked up a little bit late, and I've got to get those in the ground, but there's just too much to do. As a matter of fact, this is things that I brought from the other house as well. In the 5-gallon buckets is my comfrey plants. I definitely want to get those separated a little bit in the ground. I couldn't run off and leave the ostrich ferns, and I'm saying it's ostrich ferns. I just got them from a dear friend named Patsy, and they do spread. They're just a wonderful fern. These were gorgeous until they got a little bit too tall, and then the weight on the seeds coming on, etc., kind of bent them over. And those are pineapple lilies. I never dreamed that those were something that would be winter hardy, but they survived the minus 25 degrees for 24 hours in the ground, in the gravels out in front of the house. So I definitely dug them up and brought them with me. And I always tend to take a few of these hanging begonia baskets and overwinter them, and they're still sitting here on the ground too. And of course there's Old Gordon and Old Vern. That's two cactus I've had for a while. I did dig up a couple of the peonies, and yes, there was another one there, but a little certain puppy likes to dig in pots. So I had a pink Japanese anemone in that pot. She dug it out. This one is just barely hanging on. I've got to get this stuff down into the ground and get it to where it'll be ready for next year. I have worked a little bit on the garden. Can't say that I'm upset with the garden. Everything was put out very late here. But these cucumbers have done excellent. I had one vine, and some people call this wilt because it does wilt first. But if you pulled up that vine and you went right down to the bottom of it, there'll be holes right at the root level. And these things have produced some absolutely wonderful pickling cucumbers. And this variety is the Boston pickling cucumbers. And I do like to raise that because I find that it does make some of the best dill pickles as well as sweet pickles. So I'm picking those while I'm out here. These are some late tomatoes, and I mean late, very late. I had never heard of this variety before. This section right here is a tomato called Louisiana Creole. I had a neighbor when I lived in Tansy that said the best tomato in the world was a Louisiana Creole. Of course, they had lived there in Louisiana for years, so I had to buy some seeds and get them started. They're late, but if you look up under there, they're really sitting on the fruit. These did not get planted until probably 2 weeks ago. If I have anything on them, it will surprise me. These are called Georgia Streak. I'm not sure how well they're going to do. They should have been planted much earlier. And then I've got some little cherry tomatoes, some of those that were in the pots with the chives, the onion chives. I've pulled them up and set them out there. And if you look across here, and we will have to go down to the other end and come in, it'll be easier. Those got eaten back by the deer till they were only about 8 inches above the ground, but they've really come out. And there's Lily Mae. Lily Mae loves the garden. But what I had to do on the end of these cattle panels was just put some chicken wire, something to stop those daggum deer from getting everything. And I see here that I've got a zucchini that needs to be picked right now. The zucchini started bearing very slowly. I didn't get it out on time. Now that one with a bloom on the end, I'll wait another day to pick it. But I've been getting about 2 or 3. And yes, this was a beautiful plant. And it may have affected this one as well, but that is the vine borer that is in the root. Normally I'd treat it with BT, but I got plenty. And it started coming up this section. You can kind of see how it's just caused the root of that vine. It's an absolutely terrible insect to have in your plants. And of course, at this stage, it's just a grub. And I've had a few squash. Now, I've got some that got way too big. They were underneath these. But this row of squash has absolutely outperformed. And I've quit picking my sprouting broccoli. It's done phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. As you can see, I had right there 2 pieces of insect netting put together, and it's pulled it apart. And I never did get my cardboard and wood chips in the aisle here. I just did the best I could do with what I have, but I have picked several cabbage, and I still have some very pretty cabbages, but they've got to come out. It is time for them to come out, and my little red cabbages are just now, after all this time, they're just now starting to form the heads, and they won't make a big head, so I'll get them. But it's been amazing how much of this broccoli that I actually have harvested. Now, I will cut it back just like I did the upper end. These little tender heads, and they're down in there. There's quite a few of them still to be pulled off. But there'll be some caterpillars in there now. I can tell because of that daggum little butterflies in there. And that's because they grew up and pulled it off. So it's about time for me to start new plants for fall anyway, so I plan to take all of these out. I have quite a bit of this sprouting broccoli frozen. I just took the sprouting broccoli and cut just the heads off and just a tiny bit of the stem, and I actually put those in a food saver and vacuum sealed them. My potatoes are ready to be dug. I have only dug one of them. I dug one right here, as you can see by that clump of dirt, and I was amazed. These are russet potatoes. The seed potatoes that were given to me was russets, and they've done fairly well. I have some late Kentucky Wonder brown pole green beans here, and this on this side of it right here. And as you can see, I've actually got an extra cattle panel there, not from to grow on, but just to keep the deer from eating them. The deer are terrible here. I got onions in the ground late, but I didn't get them in the ground till, I guess it was very late May, early June. And that they did anything has amazed me. But they're making some pretty good little onion heads there. And that's some late peppers. Will they bear anything? I don't know. I just didn't have time to get them in the ground. As I said, I've had a ton of stuff to get done to get here. But this is my little garden, and I only actually gardened, I guess maybe it's a little less than half of the entire garden space. The rest of it still has the silage tarp on it, and I'm going to tell you, I'm absolutely amazed. If I step out on that tarp, that ground's just as soft as it was the day it was plowed. The rest of the ground over here where we've been on it and where the rain has hit it, it's actually compacted rather tightly, but not that. I guess the tarp spreads the weight of the rain. Now, let me show you my heirloom tomatoes here. This is one of the tomatoes that I truly love to grow. And this is the pink German, and the top on that being it's an heirloom will stay green. But they're really starting to ripen up. The first one was a fused blossom, and I weighed it. It weighed 1.9 pounds. But these others are nice size. These are Dr. Wyche tomatoes here, and I like that variety. It's also an heirloom, and I got several of them planted. Looks like I've got a couple there I need to take and bring the clips and cut off. This is a hybrid, It's actually a little orange salad tomato. It's bigger than a cherry tomato, and it's been bred just for flavor. So we'll have to wait and see how that comes out. And I have got to get some boxes down here. And this, look at the ripe tomatoes. These are celebrity. I've grown celebrities for years. I was growing celebrities well before I started growing my heirlooms. And they put all their fruit on at one time and get ripe because they, unlike the heirlooms that I've got on the upper end, they are determinants. So once they bear, these vines are going to die back. And this is a better side for the little cherry tomatoes. I was telling you that I moved the seeds out of the pot. Now these were some late cherry tomatoes that would set in pots way too long. And I've always heard that they get hard stalk and they won't grow, but I don't believe everything I'm told. And I want you to look at all the new growth. The only growth on this thing was just a few leaves on the tops. And I cut a lot of that off. This one is just now starting to come up. It's called a chocolate cherry tomato. We'll see if it comes out. This one bit the dust, but that's okay. I've got plenty of tomatoes without having to have all of them here. And probably this coming week, I'll go over, oh, there's another big cucumber. It looks like I maybe missed it last time I was picking cucumbers. It's a pretty good size. It's a pretty good size cucumber, but still the seeds are not too big to pickle it. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to get some boxes and pick those tomatoes that are ripe. What I'm going to put my tomatoes in is these canning boxes. You never want to stack tomatoes when you're picking them. When I was a kid, we were taught to pick them in 5-gallon buckets and they'd rot in no time. What we were doing was stacking them one on top of the other. The stem on the tomato was poking holes in the tomato above, allowing it to get bacteria in it, and they just rot quickly. So always use something like this. I like to use clips when I'm harvesting my tomatoes. The stems, especially on these pink Germans, are so tough. Here again, this is a fused blossom. You can tell it's two tomatoes grown side by side. Well, here we are in the middle of the day, and I mean, it's about lunchtime, somewhere around 12, and little Sally Brown turned 7 months old on the 17th of July. No, on the 13th of July. She went into heat on the 17th, and apparently, and I know to watch her, apparently her scent has attracted a coyote. And it just run across the backyard. So it's best I go ahead and get her inside. No way do I want more puppies. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying my videos, and if you are, please go ahead and subscribe. Ring the little bell. The subscribe icon should be right there on your screen. And follow along. See how I adapt from being in a homeowners association. And no, my nose is not running. That's just sweat dripping off this old bald head down off the end of my nose. But I want you guys to know that we appreciate you. I certainly appreciate you, and I hope you'll follow along as we continue. Have gone from being an urban gardener to now being a homesteader, because I'll be able to have animals here, and that's the wind rocking that camera. I am going to be a homesteader. Not only will I be raising my garden, I'm going to be raising at least maybe a couple different kinds of animals here. We'll see as time goes on. First, I've got to get settled in because I'm not there yet. Hopefully I'll be settled in here probably within a month or so. All right, as I said before, we appreciate every one of you, so I hope you will subscribe and follow.